without a doubt, given this is the Invested podcast, my best investment by a long way was my wife. And just for the record, to be completely transparent, I'm definitely punching above my weight.
Welcome to the Get Invested podcast, where we share conversations I've enjoyed with experts from all walks of life to uncover their secret know-how on where they invest their time, their skills and their money, and the benefits this has created. Get Invested helps you to live more, work less, and leave a legacy by investing now. Listen to the show to discover top tips on how to get started, to make the most of your investment journey, and ultimately to be living the dream. More episodes can be found on iTunes or at khgroup.com.au/Get Invested. Thanks for listening, and let's get invested. Welcome to Get Invested, freedom fighters. Are you really operating at your personal best? Is everything you do the best that you can do? Now, I want you to be honest with yourself. We all aspire to be the best version of ourselves. We tell people that this is our goal. We put it in our New Year's resolutions. We stick it in our business plans and our performance reviews. But do we really follow through? Who are we when no one else is watching? Who keeps us accountable to ensure that we're on track? I don't know about you, but if I'm left totally to my own devices and I'm only answerable to the person in the mirror, things just don't seem to happen as well or as quickly. So if you're going to take total responsibility with no excuses so that you follow through and do what you say you're going to do, who would you turn to in order to keep you accountable? For me, it needs to be a proven performer, a demonstrated high achiever who walks the talk, someone you like, you trust, and you respect. A mentor who can model their success. And in this regard, there is no one better than today's guest, Dr. David Dugan. David's a high achiever who's hell-bent on helping you achieve your best in all aspects of your life. He's a business coach and a lead mentor for the Elite 500 Mastermind Group. And his goal is to help you to do what you love best. As he says, nobody should die with music still inside them. And he's here to empower you to step up, to embrace your vision of your life, and to make it count. And no one is better qualified to help you do this. David started life as a dentist. He ended up being a commander in the Navy. He has leadership and coaching qualifications as long as your arm. He's built a very substantial property portfolio with his wife. And he's personally guided over 4,100 entrepreneurs to achieve great things and to create a better lifestyle for themselves. I've been very lucky to spend a lot of time with David in his capacity as a coach with the Key Person of Influence or KPI program with the Dent Group. And I can say for sure that on top of his motivating inspiration, he's a genuine, caring, down-to-earth guy. So I want you to grab a pen because you'll need to take lots of notes. You'll need to listen to this quite a few times because there's absolute gold in his words today. So please sit back now and enjoy Dr. David Dugan. Well, here we are back again with Get Invested, and I've got the enormous pleasure to spend some time with Dr. David Dugan. I had a humbling opportunity to spend quite a bit of time with David through the Key Person of Influence program under Dent, and really respect and admire what he's personally done and what he does to help others. So welcome aboard, David. Great to have you here.
Hey, g'day, Bushy. Good to be here, and good to see all the cool stuff you're doing out there on the planet. This is such an important topic, so I'm excited to see where today's going to go.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, mate. Well, look, for those that don't know you, can you just give us a rundown on who you are, what you do, and where you're currently heading?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll start where I am now. I'm a business mentor and coach, and I run a boutique company that works with small businesses, usually between 300 to 3 million in revenue when they start with us, and they're wanting to scale their business profitably. So that's probably the snapshot. We're a team, just under 12 of us. I work with every client, and we have a team that work with all our clients, and we love what we do. And the whole purpose of what we're really about is we help entrepreneurs to create intergenerational wealth and prosperity for themselves and their communities so that collectively we are working as entrepreneurs to work for global abundance. So our company brand, which we did last year, is called Global Abundance. So that's very much the theme around what we do, and we know that entrepreneurs are the backbone of every community, every country in the world. They innovate more than anyone else. They're the people who employ more people than anyone else. They take the biggest risk. So we see ourselves as being the support and the co-pilot for entrepreneurs as they're growing their businesses.
Yeah, brilliant, mate. I love that term, global abundance. It's sort of all-encompassing. Is that your why, mate? Is that what drives you, or is there what else is behind the why for you, David?
If I had to go to the absolute why, the why that gets me out of bed every day, the why is for me to be my personal best. It's like, how do I be my best? And for me, where I came from and my upbringing, for me, everything is about, how can I love, lead, and inspire. And so for me to get out of bed, that's me personally, but how that translates into the business is inspiring entrepreneurs. So I started a life as a dentist in the military, and a few life events came about that made me decide, well, where do I want to spend the rest of my life, and what's the difference that I wanted to make. So leaving a legacy is super duper important, and I've got 3 little kids, 1-year-old, 5-year-old, and 7-year-old, and so it's about how do we have the planet in a better place than what it is now for when they come through. So it's very much my focus. So it is about inspiring business owners to be the best they can possibly be, and not have to go through the brain damage.
Yeah, it's a good term.
Most people have to go through.
Yeah, that very good call. Yeah, no, and I love that line, love, lead, and inspire, mate. That's a brilliant credo. And it's obviously something that's either you've been born with or inherited very early, because when I was Google stalking you, and by the way, I just love the journey so far on your website, mate. It's just the way you've combined your achievements with the personal passions is awesome, very visual, very easy to get your head around. But it does give me an impression of someone who was very inspired from an early age. Can you talk us through, because I'm very interested to focus in on what you invested your time, energy and money in right from the get-go. Can you sort of take us on your journey and talk us about your motivations and what it was that made you make the decisions that you did on that path?
Yeah, what I might do, rather than doing the journey right from where to go, what I'll do, I'll give a bit of context, and this is probably something that happened. I learned afterwards, but I had a feeling for what I didn't have was the words to put the feeling into it, and it was just a cartoon. I saw a cartoon. It's really, really old now. It must be at least 20 years ago, and it was just a cartoon. And it had a picture of literally like a cartoon, of a bum, like I don't know, what's a nice way of saying bum? A person who lives on the street. Okay. And it had a picture, of him laying on a bench, and then there was and right next to it there was a picture of a limo and a guy getting out of the limo in a suit. Yeah. And there was a little bubble on the top of the bum. Or the person who didn't have, it's not a very nice word. I'm just trying to think of the elegant way of saying someone who doesn't have a home, homeless. That's probably a better way. Yeah. That's more appropriate.
Gotcha.
But the way it was inscribed, though, it had the word bum. So this is obviously 20 years ago. And it just said, the little quote just said this: "There, but for me, go I."
Yeah.
And it just sort of made me think, it's just a choice.
Yeah.
And I think we all get motivated by different things, but one of the motivations, which is a negative motivator, but works for me, is one of my greatest fears. It would be to meet myself in the future of the person I could be.
Love it.
And so that whole driving of, well, how can I be the best that I can be in whatever way that is? I'm pretty terrible at heaps of things, but I'm good at some things, and they're the things I stay focused on. So that's probably something that I just picked up from an early age, and I was blessed to have the most amazing parents And, my dad, or both my parents were very much into personal development. They read books. We had a massive library. So I grew up with what now seems like an extraordinary family that I thought was pretty average and pretty normal. So Dad did Dale Carnegie and all these things. And so he mentored us all the way through, as I now realised. But I think the as far as the history, it was at school. I went to a boarding school. Yep. I remember being there, grade 8, and the school captain at the time, his name was a fellow by the name of Jim Leggett, who was one of the most inspiring people, even to this day, that I've ever met.
Okay.
And he was the full package. Stuck to the school, played for the first 15.
Yep.
Incredibly nice guy, amazing orator. And just incredibly humble country kid who did good. And so as far as investing, what I went, okay, that works. Why don't I just do that? So I just, every year I went through high school, I just modeled myself on the school captain of the year, or the elements that I like. And so for me, modeling became a really important part of success, and going, well, if that works, practice it the way they do it, and then make it my own. So that was probably a really fundamental principle, and where that came from is I always wanted to be the best that I could be, and I always looked to role models to see what they did. And that just took me through the journey from high school into uni and into the military, and then going forward. And I could happily go through those bits and pieces because there's some twists there as well.
Well, we might cherry pick some of that because there was things that pricked up my interest, having a look at it. And you obviously started your first business very early. Can you just sort of talk us a little bit again? What prompted you to do it? What was it?
I grew up in Darwin in primary school, so it was a bit of the Wild West. There was no TV. Well, there was TV, but you came on for a few hours in the day. And a wonderful kid is a boy's own adventure, and I loved comics. And so what do I have to do to get pocket money? My parents were not going to give it to me. I had to earn it. So I started a little lawn mowing run, just our house and the neighbours around. And that's really where it first started. I'd make money and go and spend it on comic books and skateboards. So in many ways, that hasn't changed. The comic books have gone to books, and I still have my skateboard, and I have a bigger skateboard now, a cardboard, and I still use that. It's still that, and it's now surfboards as well. So that probably hasn't changed. It's changed a lot. But I've had a business on the side from the word go. I think in high school I went to a boarding school, and they used to have there's a game called bingo, which at the time was banned, or you weren't able to do it in New South Wales. So they truck up all these grey nomad type people from the homes, and they'd go and set up the school hall. So I was there, used to run the setting up and pulling down of the chairs, and in fact that's why I decided to become an entrepreneur, because I did this. I was like, there's good pocket money. And then there was one exam period where I couldn't do the setup and pull down. I had to organise, so I led the group, but I couldn't do it. And so they said, can you organise people? So I organised everyone to do it, because it was still my responsibility to do that, I felt. And I had to organise the pay, so I had to sign off on everyone who was there. They got paid like $5 or something. And I got paid double for organising it. And I remember I went in at the end of the week and said, right, here's the list, here's all the people. And they then gave cash at the time. And then they gave me I got double for everyone else, so that was like almost about $10, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're a boarding school, it was a heap. It was a heap of cash, and they still gave me the money. And I said, but I didn't do the work. And they said, we don't mind, you just organise it. And I'm like, you're kidding me?
Bingo.
I mean, I can work. I don't have to work. I just have to organise it. And so that was it. That was I licked the ice cream of entrepreneurship, and have had a business on the side, even in the military, all the way through to this very day. So that was it. That was the defining moment. That I was like, man, that's all I have to do. This is great.
Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant insight very early, mate. There wouldn't be too many that would go, okay, light bulb. If I just organise and get other people to do it, I don't need to be there, but I can still put money in my pocket. That's a pretty big insight for someone, obviously, of that vintage, mate.
Well, also, I think I went to a boarding school, and it was a Catholic boys' boarding school, and everything being fair was a big thing. So I didn't think it was fair. So it really hit me as a I didn't think it was fair that I was getting paid. So that's why I was particularly defining that I was like, hang on a second, but I didn't go back. And they said, no, we're going to pay you because you organised it. And so I was like, oh, this is neat.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah,
here we are now. Yeah,
well, given that obvious entrepreneurial streak very early in the piece, you obviously then decided to go to uni and study dentistry. And it seems that from the outside looking in that almost looks like a divergence of your thinking, because it's clearly a potentially financially good profession to be in, and yes, it would attract the best of the best. So I can see from your desire to want to be the best you possibly can be, either doing medicine or dentistry, pretty much the pinnacle when you're going through high school. So that sort of makes sense. But given that flair that you've got behind you...
Maybe it's not as obvious as most people think.
Okay.
When I did dentistry, not because it was the hardest thing to do, but I did it because I went, at the time they had a thing called the CES, and I went and looked at every single job on the planet.
Yep.
And I did a little spreadsheet, worked it out, went, what actually meets my desires the most. And went, well, number one, they were the highest paid people when they left uni.
Yes.
Number two, you got to use your hands. So
yes.
I love art. And so it was like, oh, actually I can make stuff. This is cool. You work with healthy people, not sick people.
Good call.
And I was like, oh, that's cool. And you're always your own boss right from the very beginning.
Yes.
And so even if you work for someone, you still call the shots.
Love
and
it.
So I was like, man, all those things sort of stack up for me. And medicine was actually never on my hit list.
Right.
It was not. I was actually. I was next thing was building, and I actually got into building science.
Okay.
I actually didn't get into. I didn't get into dentistry first year. I had to go back and repeat the year.
Right.
But I was going to be building. I come from a building and real estate and property family.
Interesting.
And I'm still the black sheep to this day.
There you go.
And go down the health path.
Well, that's because of very similar parallels with myself. In actual fact, I'm a country boy. Was an architect for 17 years, and the attraction to architecture for me was very, very similar criteria to what you just ran through, because it was...
Oh, my God, architecture. I didn't know you were an architect.
Yeah, you don't hold that against me, David.
I was thinking the other day that if I had to think of the worst industry to get into, it would be architecture.
Yes.
For the simple reason that the time it takes for mastery is so long.
Yes.
And the time it takes to get to the top of the pile is so long.
Yes.
That the cycle's too slow, which is what I love in dentistry. You can see lots and lots of patients, so you have to practice your trade so much quicker. Wow.
And it's interesting you made that insight. It took me too long to find that out because I was naturally creative as a child and always designing stuff, so it just seemed like a natural progression. And it was good while I was young and single. I could travel the world, which I did, chasing big projects and throwing myself in deep to get plenty of expertise and experience. But I found out probably, and I'd be interested to talk to you about this. I found myself locked to the profession, and a great profession, but a terrible business. It's a lousy business model if you're looking for lifestyle and income. And I could see potentially dentistry having the same potential impact. He could become a workaholic very easily as a dentist, I would imagine. So tell us about that shift, because it's a pretty big shift to make. You made an enormous commitment to your education to become a dentist, and then at some point you've made the decision to jump out of that. Can you talk us through your thinking and what led you to that point?
Yeah, there are a few things there that are odd. That in fact, most people look at it and go, "It's a very odd sort of shift." Because I have 5 university qualifications, 3 are clinical, and 2 are business. So I put a heap into the clinical side. The thing around that, I think this is true for most people, or for many people anyway, that yes, you might have a profession, but there's also other areas that people are passionate about and they enjoy.
Right.
And I was fortunate enough through high school, then through university, that I was attracted to things that were in leadership roles.
Okay.
And that as I've subsequently found out around personality styles, that happens to be my personality. For some people, it's not, and that shouldn't be the path they necessarily go down.
Right.
But it was for me. And I got a scholarship in the Navy, and so I went through the Navy system and went through the ranks and retired as a commander in the Australian Navy. And at the time, was the youngest commander in my area to do so. It wasn't because I was brilliant. It was because I was investing in myself around my education and training in things that were outside. So leadership was always going through that and about how to be the best. What was the edge physically, mentally? What could I do to do the edge? So that's always been there.
Right.
And I went through. There's an amazing guy. I'm sure you would have heard of him, called Jim Rohn.
Yes.
And I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship for the Navy. And the week after I left the university, my training, the years of training, the first week I was drunk, pretty solidly with my mates for a good solid week, and then I realised that I'm going to make a heap of cash being a dentist. I just knew that was going to be the case, and I need to be smart around it. So I literally just went to my old man's bookshelf and started reading some things, and it just turned out that the following week, Jim Rohn, rest in peace, was visiting the Gold Coast, and I convinced my father, who was a big Jim Rohn fan, and we both went down.
Fantastic.
For 3 days. I still have to this day have all my notebooks, was 2 chocolate book notebooks of his.
I bet.
And at the day, they used to have tapes and videos. Yep. I used all the money I had and bought his whole package.
Yep.
And there were 50 tapes and videos, and I just went, well, I'll listen to a tape a day. So I left the Navy, left home and went to the Navy down in Melbourne, and literally for the next 50 days I listened to a tape, and I just went back and did them again and again and again and again and again.
Brilliant. He was an absolute legend. There's no question about it. If you had a look at the influence he's had on leaders at all levels across the globe, he's been very influential. So that must have been a sensational time to be spending with your dad, having listened to Jim. That was, be very memorable, I'd imagine.
And I think, as far as investing in, even now I say to people, if you want to get some principles in place, go on to Jim Rohn's website. He's now passed away, but he's got some amazing. There's nothing of his that is bad. It's all gold, and it's still 100% relevant today.
Yes.
Probably more relevant today than it was even then.
Yep.
And I think he's got one called The Time of Your Life. I think it is, or something around that line, and it's just absolute gold. So. That was a pivotal moment that really helped me just to keep on pushing along in that area. And he mentored Tony Robbins, and I knew about that, so I went and did a heap of Tony Robbins work. And back heaps, and was fortunate enough to become a trainer with Tony about 11 years ago. I think I became a trainer, so I've been with Tony since 1999.
Okay.
And helping them put on events, do all that sort of stuff. And so that was a big push along. And he's some people don't like him because he's gregarious and he's out there. I've been in small rooms and been mentored by him for a long while, and he's absolutely the real deal. And he taught me heaps.
I agree.
Helped me in many ways today.
I totally agree. I was fortunate enough to see Tony in Alice Springs. Would you believe? I'd spent a fair bit of time in the territory too, David, both in Darwin and Alice Springs, and he ran a 2 or 3 day exercise in Alice when I was lucky enough to be there working, and loved every second of it. It's just the inspiration that he brings to the table and the insights that he can sort of laser-like put his finger on, quite exceptional in that regard. So tell me, I'm just going to do a little pivot here. Why the forces? Again, a very structured environment, very dot the I's, cross the T's, not a lot of opportunity to sort of jump, or from, again, I don't know a lot about the forces, so I'm surmising here, but probably within that structure, not a lot of opportunity to jump outside and be something different. What was the attraction? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I think I watched Top Gun too many times. I went to
you do look a bit like Tom Cruise, mate, so I can see that.
I'll pay you later for that one. I think, and I was grade 10 when that came out, and there was probably a little seed of that. Partly that, but part of it was also, I knew I was going to become a dentist. In fact, I didn't even want to become a dentist since I was 5 years old. It wasn't until I was that grade 10 I went, actually, let's double check this and really check, do I really want to do it? And I was like, yeah, I do.
Okay.
But I always felt it was going to be a stepping stone. I always felt that there was something else.
Okay.
So I gave it my all. And the thing around that was I knew that I was going to earn good income as a wage earner. I didn't really understand business.
Sure.
Even though I was doing it on the side, I always thought this was little funny things you do on the side. I didn't think it was something you could do for real. I was 100% go to school, get good marks, go to uni, do as well as you can, get into the best course, do the best you can, and then go out there and become a dentist. That was my 100% my road that I was on. So I figured, well, I'm going to make a heap of money. I may as well do, this is my mind at the time, I may as well do my community service, and then I'll justify that I can make all this money. I'll feel okay that I'll be actually given some time and given some community. So I think it was maybe my Catholic upbringing that, you flog yourself a little bit. And so I assume that was before I'm worthy, I needed to do something. And that really was a big part of the driving force. But I thought, well, if I'm going to do it, I may as well have a heap of fun. And, I looked at the Army, Navy and Air Force, and I applied for all three because you just did whatever you could do to get into those. But it was really the Navy that tickled my fancy because everyone's part of the ship.
Right.
So no one's, pilots fly and everyone else supports them.
Right.
Army, you're either in the trenches digging stuff, which seems sort of okay, but you didn't get to travel around the world. And I'm like, man, I get to travel around the world. I get to earn okay. I get to have fun. And that was really the driving force. What I didn't realise was how much I would enjoy it.
Yes.
And how much I enjoyed the leadership part of growing teams.
I bet.
And so that was, I won't say it was a fluke, but it was a bonus that really led me to where I am today in many ways.
Okay.
Because the job the way they teach us anyway, and how true that is, I've yet to be decided, but you're an officer first and then your profession second.
Right. So
you wear the rank, and you got to do what you have to do and learn the trade. And so that's what I did, and I went into that and loved the variety, loved doing things that were different. And I was very fortunate to I got to travel the world. I had the dream.
Brilliant.
I had a dream run, and it was great fun. So the last job I had was as a professional executive coach, training the commanding officers that went to the Middle East and in high stress jobs. So that was what I transitioned into the last phase of my career in the Navy. Okay,
well that's sort of making a lot of sense now, and it's fair to say that everyone I've worked with or had the pleasure of doing business with out of the forces has a brilliant ability to lead, to project manage, the discipline, the work ethics there, the respects there, just a brilliant training ground. There's absolutely no question. And,
yeah, it is. I probably when I was in it though, I thought that it was slack.
Really?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people always say, "Oh man, we should be doing it. It should be so much better." And I thought, I can't wait to go into entrepreneur land because those guys are not going to stuff around bureaucracy. They're just going to get in there.
Yeah, sure.
They're going to have it all sorted out, and they're going to have it all worked out.
Okay.
Then I came into entrepreneur land with, holy hell.
Yes, the creatives can get in the way of themselves, can't they? Unfortunately, that's the big challenge there. There's no doubt about it. No, I've noticed also you appear to have spent a little bit of time in the financial planning arena, mate. Was that just a side hustle, or where does that fit into the equation for you?
It was two things. Remember I said to you when I left uni, I decided that I was going to have to sort myself out, and I went to Jim Rohn.
Yes.
I also read an awesome book called Getting It Together by Noel Whittaker.
Yeah, brilliant. He's very good. Yes.
He's good. He had all the money books and everything, and I went, I'll start with the basics. I better get my shit together, for want of a better word. And so I read that book, and it sort of light bulb moment for me. I went, I better start apportioning money. And I literally just followed the book. I just said, well, that's what the book says, and I better just follow it. At that time, I believed that if something was written in a book, it had to be accurate.
Good belief.
It's interesting that it worked. And one of those things was to see a financial planner.
Right.
So I went and just found someone that I knew. So I didn't know. I just went and asked some people and went to person literally before I left, because when you're in I had a scholarship, which meant I was basically a civvy, but the Navy paid for me.
Right.
Went to a financial planner. He sat down and did a game plan for me and said, well, you need to take this amount of money out and put it into these different funds and blah, blah, blah. And I trusted that and went, okay, well, that seems to make sense. And so we kicked in. So that was when I understood this thing around financial planning, understanding, well, I better do something with my money. I don't want to just piss it away, which I could see easily happening.
Yes.
And so I set that up. What I found, though, is as I was going through the Navy, I was always going to courses and training and different learnings outside the military around how to create wealth. And I figured, I don't know, some people were, and that era was the era of seminars going everywhere, selling all sorts of different things.
Yep.
And I bought heaps of different things. I just found a lot of them didn't stack up, for want of a better word.
Sure.
So I thought, well, I'll go to uni again. I just wrapped up 3. I thought, well, the lecturers know, so I need to learn about finances. I'll go and become a financial planner. I did the financial planning course, and it was really good. I actually learned a lot of things. Yep. But I realized that, one, how easy it was to get a financial planning license. not a license, to do the diploma. Let's be clear on that. I never intended it to do it with other people. I only intended it to do it with myself.
Okay. So it's a skill set.
It was a skill set, and then I realized that lecturers lecture for a reason.
Right.
And that the people who are really good at doing it are out doing it.
Yes, good call.
And because I then racked up an advanced diploma of business thinking that I'd learn about business, and I'm like, oh man, this is not working. So outside those 5 university qualifications, I reckon around now, what's that, like 12 years or so, I've put in well over $1 million in my own professional development, traveling the world, mixing with, the people who are really doing it, not the people that are like on it.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So that's a really good message for those that are listening, that investing in your skills and then making sure you're getting alongside the best of the best so that you're getting it directly from them, and having the courage to actually do that, David. I mean, there's not many people, a lot of people read the books, but there's very few people that would have been rubbing the shoulders with Tim Robbins and getting in front of Jim Rohn. And I think you've obviously spent a session at Necker at some stage, because I think I've seen a photo of you and Richard Branson. So you're clearly a person who gets very targeted on and focused on where you're heading, and then makes it happen. Is that something that's just been inherent in you, or again, is that family upbringing, or where does that decisiveness and courage and follow through come from?
Oh, look, the way you say it, it's way bushy. It sounds like it's this really cool thing, and it's like I'm thinking, oh man, where do I get that from?
It is really cool, mate. There's very few. Let me tell you, I've interviewed thousands of people, mate, over the years. And and the first question I ask, this might sound strange, but when we sit down to talk to people about helping with their property investment portfolio strategy, the first question I ask them is, what's your perfect life look like? And 99 out of 100 say, well, actually never thought about that before, Bushy. And yet I hear in you, and I can see it all the way through your background, you've decided from 5 you were going to be a dentist. Now, there was a lot of people who were going to be policemen when they were at kindergarten, or firemen at kindergarten, because that sounded pretty cool. But you've obviously got a very clear vision of where you see your life heading, and you are clearly making that happen. Is that just an inherent part of who you are?
That is interesting. Let me just think. It sounds really cool when you say it. Here's the emotion of it. This is probably the best way for me to articulate it.
Okay.
So I can't look at it and go, well, what do I want? And sometimes, like where it is now, is definitely a 10-year vision, and it's very much we know what we're doing in 2027.
Yeah.
We don't know exactly the outcomes of products and that, because no one's going to. The change is happening the change that is happening today, that is particularly everyone's going to see everything happening in the next 2 to 4 years, is unprecedented. Like no one can predict what that's going to happen.
Massive.
But we know the goals. We were very, very clear on the outcomes, and us supporting 1 million entrepreneurs globally. And then so we're very, very clear where the company needs to go in that category. So if I go back in the days, it would be kind of like, literally, I was like, that looks really cool. I'd like to do that. That looks like it'd be really fun. And then I'm just going to go, well, what's involved with that? Just, how would it meet my needs? And this is my words now.
Yes.
I'm going to go, well, would it be fun? Would I enjoy doing it? Would I be good at it? Would it give me income? I'd always be clear as my parents grew up in broken families and they worked unbelievably hard. My dad did like 10 years of university part-time to get his engineering qualification. Right. So, I've always had a very strong work ethic. That's probably one thing that was just inherent in what we did.
Yeah.
Everyone had to pull their weight. So we never grew up with heaps of cash, but we never needed anything. We had a great, beautiful upbringing. So I believe that it was just, I just look at that and go, well, let's have a look out there. And again, it was like, how can I be my best? And I thought, well, I don't want to just be by chance go rock up and go, well, this is where I am because this is where it is. It's like, well, no, just work it out. Just sit down. Well, where do I want to go? And really, it's like, well, what looks like something that would be fun, that'd be interesting, that would meet my needs, that would give me, now I'll use the language of income.
Yes.
And it was really, that was the driving force. Now, I suppose if I really dig into that, I would commit to that and I'd do what I'd say I was going to do. Right. So I would go and learn the trade.
Right.
And I would go in and I would put the work in and I would put the effort in. So I was never a brilliant athlete or a brilliant, I wasn't like the Ducks of the Year or anything like that. I was just the guy who worked hard.
Yes.
And there's a quote that the father had on his wall, one of many of them. And I suppose this has been a driving force. And it was, it might even be a Jim Rohn quote. And the essence of the quote was something like, you don't need to be the best. You don't need this. You just need to work harder than anyone else, or you just need to put the effort in for a longer period of time.
Yes.
Much more elegant quote than that. I thought, well, look, I'm not the brightest kid on the block, and I'm not the best athlete, because I love sports.
Yeah.
But if I work harder than anyone else, then I know I'm gonna get there. And I was like, well, okay, well, you don't have to be talented. You just have to work, and that's not talent. And so I was like, I just put the effort in to learn what I need to learn to do that. And as you can see, my career's had many pivots in many ways, although the thread has still been very, very similar. So I think that's probably one thing is just look at what I'd like to have happen.
Yeah.
No rocket science, no rocket surgery on that one. Look at where I want to go, and then go, well, what are the pieces that I need to do? Well, I need to learn this. I need to learn this. I need to understudy by someone, and then just dedicate myself. And I would tell someone that I was going to do that. Oh, this is what I like to do.
Right.
And I think embarrassment was high on my list at the time. and so it was like, well, if I'm going to tell people to do it, and they asked me, I haven't done it. It was like, again, I could never live with myself. That whole idea of the person I could be in the future, and thinking that I could have been that person, but I was just a lazy ass. I mean, that for me, that's massive motivation.
Yes, mate. I listening to you, I feel like I'm talking to myself. It's quite uncanny, David, because I was a punk-chested asthmatic at country school, and I was always a year or two younger than everyone else in the class. And the lesson I learnt was exactly your lesson. If I just work harder than everyone else, then I'll get there. And it's going to take me time, but that's okay. I'm just going to go hard, go fast until I achieve it. And I'm going to tell everyone that's what I'm going to do, because then there's no backing out. I can't run and hide if I put my nuts on the table. So
yeah, commitment is so. The thing is, I remember in sports, I was always in the relays. I never was the individual guy, but I didn't care. I was in there. I was doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome.
I think with that sport analogy, sport's been a big part of it, and not that I think you have to be a good sportsman, the practice of sport and discipline. There's more of my discipline that comes from sport than it does from the military by a long way.
Right.
And I think the thing is, I never wanted to be in the grandstand watching the players.
No.
That for me feels like a waste.
Agreed.
So I was like, well, what do I need to get on the playing field? And that's what I'll do. And it's like, okay, well, simple thing is, who's doing it right now? And just watch them.
Yes.
What do they do? And then just do that. It was like, it ain't that hard, just quietly.
But no one does the work. That's the thing. I'm like you. I love sport. I'm still playing sport. They call me grandpa on the field hockey pitch, David, because I'm sort of
that's rude.
20 or 30 years older than everyone else I'm running around on the pitch with. But I just work harder. I'm a little bit slower than I used to be, so it's the old bull, young bull thing. But I'm still there, and it's exactly that ethos that you've talked about as to why I can continue to do that. I just keep myself fit, and I have to work every day at it. Every single day I have to work at it now to make sure I'm flexible enough, strong enough, skillful enough. But and I think that's what I see in yourself and all the successful people I've been fortunate enough to have a chat to. They understand that success takes time and that there is no overnight results. And if you just keep on doing what you're doing and learn the healthy habits and the skills of the great, then you become that in the process. So has that been your experience today?
Yeah, 100%. Jim Rohn, so my father first, look at his habits, Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, my school captains, Jim Rohn, then Tony Robbins, and then as I've developed, like I've got my own, I'm not having to have model runs as much, and then I pick up pieces from other people who are doing cool things. Yeah. But it is absolutely the effort that I had to put in there, and like you, 6 out of 7 days a week I do something physically to push me mentally. Yeah. And I think that's a big part of it. Like there's heaps of days, most days I don't want to do it, but I know how I feel at the end of it.
Yes.
And it's that constant in the gym, in the mental gym. Yep. Most of the exercise I do now is to get me in the mental gym, not the physical gym, although there's a benefit from the physical as well.
Yeah, good call. Yeah, well, okay, let's talk about the mental gym. What does the mental gym look like for you, mate? What is it?
As in the exercises I do?
What do you take yourself through? Yeah. Do you mind sharing?
Happy to. I mean, it's a little bit crazy. So, for me, I used to do a lot of swimming, so I'm used to getting up early. That's part of my body. Yes. So I get up with the sun, basically, or get up when the birds start chirping. Right. Without alarms, haven't had an alarm for a long time, many years, probably decades.
Awesome.
But that comes because I make the intention the night before what time I'm going to get up. So I go, this is what time I'm going to get up. And I aim to be up somewhere, depending on the season, between 4:25 and then for 2 months in winter, it's about 5:15. Right. So that's the time I get up. Right. And get up in the morning, do the shit shower, shave, kind of routine. But then I get in and I have my little warm drink, bit of turmeric and ginger and a few things, and I will get in and do breathing exercises. So I do that for about 20-25 minutes. Okay. And so I prime my body doing that. And that's
so you're sort of meditating while you're doing the breath. It's
a bit of a meditation, but it's active. So I'm working. Okay. And my body temperature goes up. I'm usually do a little bit of it on a mini tramp, and I do incantations in the morning. So I'm literally get up, do my drink, so I get warm water in me. Get on a mini tramp, do some light breathing exercise, go through, my vision for my life, my purpose, the key words that are important for me around, like the values that are my words, right. The words are my values. Yep. And so just do that's 5 minutes, and then breathing, and then after do the breathing, I'll do physical exercise. Okay. So I'll get in, and that'll be something that will push me. I'm traveling, I have a really simple routine that works unbelievably well, and I just do 50 push-ups, 12 chin-ups, and a 2-minute wall sit. And it's amazing how strong that keeps me in about 7 minutes.
Yes, I do the same thing. I've got a 7-minute routine that I do when I'm traveling, and it just gets the heart pumping, clears the head, a little bit of strength in there, and you're ready for the day. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah. And read a book in the morning. Read some pages of a book, or photo read, and just get through that. And then I'm kind of done. Shower, food, brekkie if I'm going to have brekkie, and then I'm off to the races.
Brilliant, mate. That's awesome. I know that a lot of people listening to that will get a lot out of that. You touched on your values. This is pretty personal, obviously. Do you mind sharing us what your values are?
Sure. I mean, that helps. That's cool. I suppose where it comes from, just to keep in mind, it is for me, it's around how do I love, lead, and inspire. So that's like the key part of it. So every day I'll get up in the morning and just go, I'm confidence, I'm courage, I'm honesty, I'm faith, I'm love, I'm determination, I'm an outstanding mentor and coach.
Love it.
And I just go through those, and then I just repeat that again. So in the incantations in the morning,
brilliant.
I'll do that. Then the next time I'll say it straight after, and that is I'll just mix the words up and then go, I'm confidence, I'm courage, I'm honesty, I'm faith, I'm love. And then I go, I'm faith, I'm love, I'm courage, I'm confidence. And then I'm love. And then I just go through, then I cycle all those things. It's like, okay, yeah, that's what it is.
It's real. It's brilliant. And it's, you can see the evidence of those words in what you've achieved and how you are. The energy that you bring to every interaction that I've seen you in is testimony to you living those values, mate. So it's it's a lot of people poo-poo the whole law of attraction thing because they say it's a bit esoteric. But it's if you just keep drumming those things into the subconscious, eventually you become those things. And again, it's that habit of repetition over time that it produces the fruit. So I know people will get a lot of listening to that, mate. It's just great to see people who are living their words in that regard, mate. So sensational.
Thank you. I suppose the thing out of that I would pull out as you were saying that is understanding the history of where that came from. And I actually learnt this in the military because I went as a dentist, but I didn't have officer training, and they took you through boot camp, for want of a better word.
Okay.
Even though you're a dentist, when you walked around, you were still an officer, a commander, and so there's one of the things that got drilled in that you're a leader. Leaders go first.
Right.
So leaders go first, and I was like, well, I'm not going to be a shitty leader. I don't want to get promoted. And the one thing around the career path is it was very clear. At the 7-year mark, you get promoted to lieutenant commander. At the 4-year mark, that's the earliest you can get promoted as a commander. So, you had this lead. So I knew, okay, here's the milestones and what I needed to do.
Right.
So leaders go first, and the energy that the leader steps into is what the rest of the team will flow on from.
Yes.
And I knew that I could never expect anyone to have more energy, more focus, or more determination or more than me. I had to set the benchmark.
Love it.
Because if I set the benchmark low, then they would be lower, and therefore the whole team would lose.
Yes.
So I felt the responsibility. It was almost as much the responsibility as a leader that I was representing my country. I know it sounded weird saying this, but I felt at the time I was like, yes, representing my country. The Queen's giving you this thing called a commission. I thought it was a big deal at the time.
Yeah.
Now, so maybe not as much, but at the time I was like, this is really serious.
It is.
And so I better do the right thing. Good little Catholic boy. I better do the right thing. And I better be a good leader. So all leaders go first. All right, I better do that. So I just did it. So that's been a big, and that has helped all the way through to this day. And I still do that. Still do those routines 6 days of the week. Yeah. I deliberately do one day where I don't.
Yes.
So I my zag day where I make sure I don't, and even if I want to, I don't let myself do it.
Yes.
And so I take that day out, and it just keeps me on track.
Yeah, it's smart. I've had to learn that. I'm a bit obsessive with this sort of stuff, and then my good wife slaps me occasionally and said, "You just got to give yourself a break because you're not going to recuperate. You'll drive yourself down if you keep doing it for long enough." And I've reluctantly taken her advice, and must admit, feeling a hell of a lot better for it. Mate, having
enjoyed that one, having a zag day,
yes.
You go on a zig and you zag across, including food. I eat quite well. Yeah. But on Saturdays, man, it's like wherever I want, yes. I eat. Don't do any of the exercise or just muck around with the kids. But come Sunday, that was like, oh man, I'm so happy to get onto it's like it keeps me going.
But I'll touch on my partner. How important has your partner been in your journey? And I often say that I think the strength of partnership is the main ingredient of success. Because I've found myself that trying to do it by myself for many years, in the right partnership. The growth that I've enjoyed personally and business and everything else that's flowed over the last 20 years that I've been with my wife has a lot to do with her. And I often say it's not about me, it's about us. It's the we, not the I. How does that sit with you and your partner, David? Is that you've similar experience?
Yeah. Without a doubt. Given this is the Invested podcast, my best investment by a long way was with my wife. and just for the record, to be completely transparent, I'm definitely punching above my weight. And she
would probably say the same thing, mate.
Well, maybe, who knows? But but I've married up. So just to be really really clear on that one. And we're definitely different personalities. She's more reserved and takes the time, very thoughtful in what she does, whereas I am, okay, give me the information. I've got it. Let's make a decision. Let's go.
Right.
That's what we need to run. And for her is don't sleep on overnight, to research and do stuff. And we both do research, but for me, it's like, okay, that's it. We'll make a decision. That's where we're going to go. For her, she needs to take a little time to synthesize it. So between the two of us, we have very good balance in what we do. And we're very, very clear. Now, just to keep in mind, my wife's got 5 university qualifications.
Is this a competition between you two then?
It wasn't. Never was. Because we both come from education where our parents were both actually engineers,
Yes.
our fathers. And it was go to school, get a good job, work there. So we kind of had that thing. And when you join the military, though, part of the military, to get the next rank, you have to go and do another.
Great.
So you won't get promoted if you don't. So you major. Otherwise, I'm not the university guy. Like, it was like, oh man, as soon as I get out, I'm never doing that again. And then I had to do it again. And I went down that pathway. Right. So she's got a Queen's medallion, the Queen's Day honours list, and she's been to the team, or she was an army surgeon, oral surgeon. I did oral surgery, should I say? She wasn't a surgeon. So she's a very smart cookie. Yeah. What we realised, and if I look in the small to medium-sized business space as well, is that it's quite a big deal to really study investing, to really not just study it, but to do it. So we made it really clear that what we do is I make the money and then she spends the money.
Love it.
And that distinction, I find, is a really important one.
So you generate the income, she creates the wealth. Is that what you're saying?
100%. And what I know is everyone needs to have 2 businesses.
Love it.
There's the one business that they're in, which is their profession. Now, whether someone is an entrepreneur, owns their own business,
sure,
or whether they're a CEO, executive, which is where I came from, in the military, that's where I spent most of my time.
Of course.
Where you're still an entrepreneur, you just have one client.
Yes. You're brilliant. An entrepreneur is what I call them, the same thing. Yeah.
Entrepreneur, 100%. And, my background in the military, in the Navy particularly, everyone thinks it's very rigid and is probably more in the Army. I can tell you in the Navy, it's like, well, you go for it. Okay. I did stuff that was, you'd think if you can't believe you got away with it. I was like, yeah, everyone just let me do it. The difference is if you stuff up, you fix it. You're responsible, and you gotta sort your shit out.
Yes.
And I suppose with my wife, she was a lieutenant colonel in the Army and the dentist, and we met through one of these education things, trainings, tertiary ones we had to do.
Right.
So it became clear energetically from my style of personality, I was better at going out there and doing the new things, and she was better at fine-tuning, dotting the I's, crossing the T's.
Love it.
That isn't my skill. And in my team, we have a heap of people that help us to do that.
Right.
So that made it better sense for her to do that, and she was actually better at it.
Right.
Because she just helped keep the stuff going on. And in fact, last year there were three businesses that I want to invest in, and we've got our investing rules and what we're allowed to and not allowed to do.
Okay.
Internally, what we agreed to went, well, it doesn't meet this one. I'm like, no, and like, come on, we can just budget. And she's, well, this is what we said. And I was like, oh. And I look back and I was like, oh man, so lucky I didn't do that. That was such a good decision.
There you go.
So that's an important point. I think as an entrepreneur or executive, that being really clear what role one plays is super important part of that. And even if you're a single person, and even when I was single, I still sort of did that unconsciously with my father, who me and investing and doing different things. So even if you're single, I think it's still important to have that other person that's helping you with that investment side, or a fiduciary of some sort that can support you financially. It's a really important part, not on your own. I think that's a fast route to poverty.
Absolutely brilliant insights there, mate. And it's, again, there's not many people who come to that. And I think for too many Australians, they get stuck on the income focus. It's just about their career and their income, without recognising the importance of time in parking their income in something that's going to create wealth that'll give them their time and their income back at the other end of that journey. You clearly have had that in mind from very early. Can you talk us through on that front? Two things that picked up my ears there. One, what your investment rules are, if you're happy to share them. And secondly, what have you individually and then collectively with your wife invested in, and how has that worked for you?
Got it. Okay. Maybe I'll do the second one first because it'll help to give an explanation of those. And if I look at the investing rules, I'd have to remember off the top of my head, and there's about 10 or 11 of them.
Wow. Okay.
And I'll have to bring up my wife will have the details of that. I can tell you, generally speaking, what it feels like, but I'll give you some of them as we go.
Great, perfect.
So we started out in property only because what I looked at the BRW top 100 at the time anyway. It was like, who's making money, who's really doing it.
Yep.
People either made their money through property or they invested in property.
Yes.
My father was a builder. And so we grew up with properties. My brother's a real estate agent now. I'm the oldest, though. So my sisters, everyone was in property, and I was the last to go to it.
Right.
And they kept on saying, look, you really need to you need to get into property, and you need to kind of do this. And I didn't want to invest in, at the time, $300,000 or $400,000 if I didn't know anything about it. So I just put it off.
Okay.
Now I realised that I lived in Sydney at the time for 10 years. I need to invest.
Right.
Okay, time to do it. So I went and did a course and did a few courses on how to invest in property.
Right.
It looked like, and at that stage, all I did had managed funds,
right.
which I had set up when I left uni with the financial planner. So he said, "Oh, yeah, do this." So I went, "Okay, well, I'll just do that, and I'll just keep on putting away little bits of money."
Yeah.
And that didn't work too well, but so it was sort of okay. So with the property though, that came with a set of rules.
Yes.
So for us, if I had to summarize some of the basic principles and then give you how we played that out, my personality was, let's go for some of the big hits.
Of course.
And when .coms came out, I invested, and then this doesn't sound like a lot, but at the time it was a bloody lot of money.
Yeah.
Like I invested $10,000 in like a startup.com, wow. which as an employee at the time, under a six-figure amount of cash.
Significant.
It was a lot of money.
Absolutely.
That went belly up. There was a couple other things that I put money into that didn't. So I tested a few things.
Yep.
And then I went, okay, well, I better do this smart. I always had this money going inside into managed funds.
Yep.
Then I decided I was having learnt my lesson and then studying properties. I wanted to go for the surefire bets as much as I possibly could after losing money.
Okay.
And what I realized is that trying to go for the long shot because it makes a lot of money is a really dumb strategy.
Yes.
And that the wealthiest people manage their risk. Right. So when I wanted to invest in property, I wanted to decrease my risk as much as I possibly can.
Brilliant.
And get the highest growth. So we went and studied, and we had a formula, which was, this is a basic formula,
sure.
is a mum and dad property in a capital city.
Yep.
That has at the time was a growth prediction that was over 10%.
Yes.
So we used to get all the prediction forms and seeing what they were. Then we go and walk the streets and check it all out. We did all that, and so we just want to look for the place that, if the shit hit the fan, there was a GFC equivalent, without knowing what GFC was at the time,
sure.
that it would still get rented out. And so we went for instead of doing the long shot, we went for the short shot all the time.
Sure.
And it needed to return something. We were both in the military and dentists, so we wanted something that was break even.
Right.
And we could have plenty of negative, if close to break even, and if we had negative gearing, that would be okay.
Gotcha.
So that was probably a big thing. And then we just said, well, let's just buy a property every year.
Yep.
Now in the first 3 years we bought 5.
Okay.
And so we think we did 7 in like 4 or 5 years. So it was just like, and we didn't spend. We were very frugal. Even to this day, we're relatively frugal. We only spend money on our investing, our education, and food.
Right.
And in fact, on the weekend is the first time we're probably going to get our flashiest car that we're going to be looking at. But other than that, we keep it pretty sort of frugal. So we go for the surefire bets. When we look at the money, I'll say what we do now is probably better. Okay. Is that we have asset allocation. So we basically have buckets, and we literally just farm the money off, make sure that our fundamental security is sorted. We need to have a certain amount of cash that sits there.
Yes.
We have our low risk investments, arguably in super, arguably. Then we have properties, and we do the mum and dad properties.
Yep.
That we just said there, and we just got through those, and they're all set up in trust and companies so that they're protected.
Brilliant.
Now, as time's gone by, what I look at now is that properties aren't necessarily got the same growth that they used to, generally, and we're not in a bigger accumulation phase at the moment.
Right. So you're transitioning into cash flow, are you? Is that where you're getting the nest egg to a size that it needs to be? Yeah. So there are probably the two extra parts. Is we do have some managed funds and a few things like that we have, and we have some things for kids. Yeah. I know my personality, that stock market trading, having gone in and done option trading, learning that and doing all that sort of stuff, really didn't meet. Like, intellectually I can do it, and I could do it for a period of time, but it wasn't sustainable. No.
I had to work what was going to be sustainable, and I didn't want that to be my business. My business was not investing.
No.
And so the principles are build the security of cash, then build the mum and dad property, the super, then mum and dad property, so we've got a portfolio of that. Yeah. Then we go into things that have greater potential growth.
Yeah, so high risk but more growth.
So, and even then they're probably not that high risk, but one high risk is a little bit more into industrial. So we haven't, just to be clear, we haven't invested in that, but that's currently our thinking right now.
Okay.
Heaps of research around that, checking out properties, and we're, almost at the place that within the next couple of weeks they'll be putting some money across for something.
Okay.
With my business experience working with entrepreneurs, and I work with 750 entrepreneurs a year as far as looking through their stuff.
Yes, massive.
That I know I can spot winners, and so we now invest in some businesses, and particularly high growth businesses and tech based businesses. Okay. So we'll do a little bit in that space as well.
Yep.
And that will probably grow as our portfolio grows and we have more that we can farm into that.
Love it.
But that's the big part of it. And my wife is probably the best person on this part, and that is she does not care about how much money I make.
Yes.
She does not care about what the revenue is. The only thing she cares about is profit and cash that comes on the back end.
Brilliant.
So that's probably the big thing, is we don't look for the Hail Mary long shots. It's always looking at what's the back end of this thing and what's it really going to be giving to us all the way through. I think so. They're probably the key things.
Yeah, love it. Love it. What I'm taking out of that is a long-term view. You do your homework. You structure things in a way that de-risks the situation as much as you possibly can. And then once you've made a decision, and you make decisions, that I'd say a lot of people who talk and they're going to and they never quite do because it's never quite perfect. You actually get in and make it happen, and then once you've done that, you're allowing it to happen. And that's what I said in my book, The Freedom Formula, which talks about how to put yourself in a position of financial freedom, incorporating equities, property, super, and other mechanisms. And the only reason I've had a big focus on property personally, David, is that from a leverage perspective, if you're very careful about what you're doing in property, it can be very good. And the criteria that you just outlined are pretty much exactly the criteria in the Freedom Formula, with the exception of the only one that, and you're probably doing this anyway, but the one that will sustain ongoing growth in property is the income demographic of the area that you're buying the property in. Because if you've got strong incomes and they're growing incomes, and you've got scarcity in a particular location and strong demand, then regardless of what's going to happen in the economy, those properties are going to continue to increase in value, and they're the pieces of gold that will continue to perform extremely well ongoing. So, no, the tide won't float all ships anymore. There's no question about it. 20 years ago, you buy any property and it'd do okay. It's certainly not the case today at all.
Yeah.
And I like what you're thinking, because I call it the capital growth to cash flow curve. You sort of, if your nest egg isn't at the size it needs to be to generate the income, it's all about growth. but it's got to be affordable. So you've got to set it up so it's not costing you an arm and a leg while you're holding on to that asset. But once you've hit that nest egg level that's going to give you the ideal lifestyle income that you need, it's then all about cash flow. So transitioning into cash flow assets like the industrial property you're talking about and other mechanisms is perfect. And I can see the financial planning background coming through because the thinking's all there. But that's a real rarity as well, mate. So I commend you and your good wife on having the smarts to...
We'd have to give my good wife more credit.
Well, no, but you're both smart enough to do it, mate. So, and that's something I'd really like listeners to take away from is the need for partnerships to work together so that one party's driving the income and the other party's creating the wealth. And because I just see a lot of partners who they don't even think about wealth because we'll just focus on the income, we'll focus on lifestyle and super and maybe the pension will allow us to live the bucket list when we get to the end of the journey. Well, they're in for a big shock, unfortunately. And having the smarts to do that is absolutely awesome, mate. So
I think property is still, like the properties that we were talking about there's still a great place for it. We've just done, and we've got a double-digit number of those.
Yep.
And what you said, I didn't mention it, having good incomes, and that's when I said mum and dad properties. That is exactly what I'm referring to, and that was one of our definite buying criteria. Now, out of our properties, given them a double digit, we went off the formula once.
Okay, how'd that go?
That's the one time that we have a major pain in the arse.
Right.
Let's go for high growth, high cash in a mining town. That's a great idea. We've already got a good double digit, in our sort of numbers. That's a great idea. That sounds like a good play. Everyone else is doing it. Well, you know what? We've got all these numbers here. We've got a good double digit number now. We've got to surely just have one, and it's not that big. So, oh yeah, really? So,
bit of FOMO there, mate.
There was definitely a bit of FOMO, and even though we've been really disciplined all the way, we thought, well, we'll give it a go, and what's the worst thing that can happen? We did our worst case, but the worst case wasn't even close to the worst case.
Yeah, right.
So, we're paying for that, and that's been a very good lesson. And every time I have any idea around, oh, honey, let's go and do, what about this thing? I think this looks really, I think it's worth looking at. She goes, well, you remember, and I won't mention the suburb, this town, remember this? And I was like, yeah, okay, all right, good point. So we've gone off at once, and we got burnt once, so we just go, right. I've got a flip chart behind me. I teach my clients, and this one here is boring is profitable.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, that's brilliant, mate. It's so true. It's as I say, it's make it happen, then let it happen. Get out of the way when it comes to investing, because what happens with people's psychology is they'll buy a property on the basis they're going to hold on to it for 10, 15, 20 years. And then they'll make the mistake of every year looking at what the growth has been, and then they'll start making decisions based on that growth or no growth. And quite often in the property market, you'll see no growth for 5 to 8 years, and then you'll see a massive spike for 4 or 5. But if you draw a line through it, you'll get very good consistent growth. And accepting from the outset that boring is profitable is spot on. I often say to people, if you want excitement in investing, go to the races or go to the casino, but let me know how you go, because the proven success comes from that very long-term view and setting yourself up right in the first place. So that's awesome, mate. Now, let's jump to the future for a moment. Let me ask you that question I ask all of our clients when we first sit down. What does your perfect lifestyle look like, and what are you investing in to make that happen, mate? You might already have it for all I know.
Yeah, I think things can always be better. That's part of that. I'll probably best for me to do it from the entrepreneur perspective, because that is my. I'm in my exit strategy. I left being a commander, a dentist. I left my profession to do this. So this is it. This is the long run, if that makes sense. That's probably the best way to keep that in mind.
Yes.
So in many ways, like if I had, let's say someone put in $20 million of cash in my bank account and I never needed to work again, what would I do?
Yes.
I'd be doing this.
You're perfect.
Perfect. There will be some changes, We'd have a maid at home. We'd have, as my wife said, I want someone who's going to cook, who's going to clean, and something else. Mow the lawn. We already got that one. So there might be there probably a few extra hands on board.
Right.
There will probably be an extra team member. We just employed 3 last week. So it would be very, very, very similar to what we're doing right now. There'd just be probably a few extra shiny bits on top of it.
Yeah.
So having said that, though, looking to the future, I do expect it to be a lot better than what it is now. I do expect that there's going to be an abundant world. I know that abundance within the globe is within our reach, and that's in a handful of years. Yes. That longevity in life by 2032, for every year that we're alive, you will extend your life by another year, which is called longevity escape velocity. So there's a massive shift. The way we think is going to be different. Most of the jobs that people are doing right now, even cooking, cleaning, just think of a 24-hour day of all the just dumb stuff that people do, that 2030, 2035 in that space, you won't do that. It won't be done. I met and saw that. I was in LA. You mentioned Richard Branson, so I spent quite a bit of time with him last year. He's in Africa with him and in NECA, and then I was in LA at their New York office, helping them productize some of the things they were doing and seeing what they're doing there, and some tech conferences I'm part of as well. Yeah. There's massive changes, and so what will change is that a lot of the mundane jobs that we do every day won't need to be done. Right. So therefore, what are we going to need to be doing? And in the 2032 will be when the BCI occurs, which is a brain cloud interface, where our brains will be uploaded to the cloud.
Wow.
And everyone thinks, that's all fantastical, and that can happen. Well, just look at the iPhone. We've got more stuff that's happening through that. iPhone, smartphones. Yep. There's more power in that than President Reagan. This is the quote that everyone says President Reagan had when he was the US president. And there's truth to that. So all this is an extension of that. Right. So when I look to the future, I think there's a world of abundance. There'll be food, water, all those things are going to get solved. Energy is coming down, it's being democratized, and it's being demonetized. Yep. So these things are changing very quickly. So where I see it in the future, and particularly for where we're going, is that we will need to focus a lot more around what is our legacy, like what is it that we are doing, what is it that we are put on the planet to do. And I ask myself those questions all the time. When I started this business, it was to have 500 entrepreneurs who are donating $500,000 to worthy causes. That is still going to be part of it. That is still part of it. Though as time gone by, it's accelerated a lot more. And for us, it's that we're going to support over 1 million entrepreneurs, and for us to be those in globally, and that we are contributing over 10 million to our own charities, and then having everyone else do the same thing as well. So that's what we. And when I say charities, that's not the right language. I say that because people get it. It's to worthy causes. Yes. Which means it could be, if your kids, well, it doesn't have to have kids, but, it could be a local scout hall that needs refurbishing. It could be, the netball courts that need, new nets and new basketballs. It could be whatever it is. It's whatever you see as a worthy cause. So for us, the governments are not going to be the people that are going to lead the change. And we can just see what's happening with the crazies at the moment. Yes. And let's not go there. That is really going to come from the entrepreneurs to create the planet that we want it to be in. Yeah. And so that's where I see the vision for myself and my family, that I'm leaving the planet in a better place for my kids, and that they're doing things that are going to be part of this collective community of entrepreneurial thinkers that are helping everyone to do things better. And that's really where I see things. And my perfect life is to keep on doing more of that, is to do more efficiently. We're looking at artificial intelligence and all sorts of different things and what we're doing to see how we can expand that even more.
Exciting, man. I'm actually getting really excited now because I've got I'm one of those crazies that gets motivated by the time I've got left. So I've got a death clock that's actually screensaver. You've probably heard about it. And I've got 7,232 days left on that, based on my ancestry, my lifestyle, all of that sort of gear.
what I'm going to shift you on that, brother, if I can give you a little bit of feedback.
Yeah,
whatever that is,
yep.
And whatever that age is, go to 2030 and then add on every year of life, add another year on.
Well, I'm really excited about that, Dave, because here's a good thing for you and your wife and a lot of others who have been bright enough to invest in a way that you're ultimately going to get your time back. Because if you're creating a nest egg that's going to generate your income, you can live forever. Because if you just live on the income that produces, and that gives us a time back to make an impact on the world through the global abundance that you're talking about, what an exciting time we're in. This is the
best time to ever be on the planet, without a doubt. It is such an exciting time, and for those people that just wake up to that because you read all the doom and gloom on the news and everything. The truth is, right now, there's less murders than ever have been on the planet. There's more people with food and water than ever have been. We've got access to more things than we ever have ever before in the history of the globe.
Wow.
And yet most people, and I've got all the numbers there on that, most people are completely oblivious to it, thinking that it's getting worse and worse and worse. It's not. It's getting better and better. Yes. And it's only going to get better. And I love this thing, this whole concept around invested. It's such a great podcast, by the way. Well done.
Thanks,
on putting that together. Because I think for us, it's investing in our health.
Yeah.
It's investing in our mindset. And we invest in our family and family times, invest in our wealth. And that really, outside that, there's nothing, and we might be boring in some respects, but that's pretty much it. That's it. I've got kids, so that's our focus, and everything else that's outside that doesn't really happen.
Yeah.
And I think that going forward, it's an extremely exciting future for people that are waking up to that and kind of going, well, I just need to go and research and just Google it and get the answers you want there.
Yeah, really exciting. Let's talk now specifically about what you're doing, because with that as a backdrop, with such an exciting future and a long future ahead of us, helping entrepreneurs to really recognise their opportunity and really optimise their business. So I see a lot of people who get into business and full of idealism and they're going to change the world, and it gets very blunted by the day-to-day grind and the lack of cash flow and the long hours, and I see a lot of entrepreneurs particularly who only focus on the income part of the business. But for me, and I guess a big learning from the Key Person of Influence journey that I went on and was lucky enough to spend some time with you, is to recognise that your business is actually an income-producing growth and saleable asset. Now, so if we complement that with what you're doing outside of with your partner, with property and equities and shares and managed funds and super, and you've also got a business that's potentially not only going to give you a sound income, but potentially is a growth asset that you can then realise either by allowing your team to take it over and still having a play, or selling it whole as bolus. How does that fit into the equation in the work that you're doing? Is that part of your paradigm in terms of how you're helping entrepreneurs, David?
100%. Yeah, it's critical, and I was fortunate enough, after doing all these years of study and spending $1 million traveling the world, I actually came down to what I believe is the ultimate success formula, and it is so simple that I was kind of like, oh, really? Is that it? And that is, it's just this. Yeah. Have a business that gives you cash and cash flow.
Yeah.
That you invest in the right vehicles, and for us it was property first. Super, yes, okay. Sure. But then actually it wasn't property first, but that was the one that's really, as you said, it gave us the leverage. It gave us a lot of leverage.
Sure.
Build the second business, which is that asset, the wealth creation, and that pays for the lifestyle.
Yes.
And it's really just that. So we live frugally until that's paying us the lifestyle that we want to. So, and when you look at particularly understanding how companies and trusts work, as in the entities, that particularly in Australia anyway, the way you can offset different incomes. I'm not giving financial advice, so just be really clear about that. Sure. It is a beautiful, beautiful vehicle, having a business that creates cash that you can then invest in other things, and the property is one of our favourite ones, not the only one. So that for me is a really important part of the journey, and particularly with our entrepreneurs, people we work with, it's not about the revenue, it's about the cash. I mean, yes. I have a business last week it is a over $10 million business, and they've got 3 months and they're going to fold.
Yeah.
It's a 20-year business.
Wow.
And literally, we've got 3 weeks to see it change. Otherwise, we're going to wind it up. Now, that's high pressure.
Yeah.
It's not about, and I see a lot of people in the entrepreneur world, oh, yeah, I've got $1 million business. So it's like,
yeah, what do you do?
I'm very fortunate enough, to work with so many entrepreneurs, and a lot of the famous people that you would know and people around would know. And just because they're famous, and what I've found is boring is profitable.
Yes.
That the little old bookkeeping company that's got 8 or 9, 10 people, 12 people working in there is cranking through a nice little profit. Yep. Because it's not about the revenue, it's around the profit. And I've got these $1 million businesses. I've got another engineering company 18 months ago that they basically made 30 grand, and it's a 7-figure business. Oh. And, I've got someone who's making, $350,000 in revenue in their business, and yet they're pulling 180. It's like, which one would you prefer? I can tell you what I would.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer, isn't it?
You can turn it around if you know what you're doing. And part of kind of in this question you're asking here is optics is super duper important. And so for us, every single month, every one of our clients has to send us their profit and loss and balance sheet. We run some financial reports on that.
Right.
So we are tracking it. So most of the times for most people, like the first thing that I suggest on that is just look at it. Have a routine where you check in with your partner and look at your wealth, your personal wealth, and your business wealth. Just looking at increases what we've seen by 18%.
Yes.
Increases your results just by looking at it.
Yes.
It's like, man, look at it, you get a better result.
Yeah, hello. Not once a year when you're doing your tax. We've got a discipline where every month we sit in front of our accountant. We've given him our projections. We've broken it down into targets per month by line item, and then we have to justify to him why we have or haven't achieved what we said we're going to achieve. And I tell you what, it has turned us around. It's been miraculous.
Yeah, that's a wise. Most people don't do that bullshit. Most people, you must have a very good accountant as well.
We do.
That you can do that with, and hopefully you can share that with your clients who that is, because that's a rare kind of a relationship, which is wonderful. I have a board of directors that I go to. In fact, this Friday I've got my board of directors meeting, so we get all my stuff sorted, get all that ready for that. So that's a big part of it, and we do that internally with our clients as well, where they've got their accountabilities to follow through. So looking at the numbers and the optics is super important, because it's not about the revenue. It's about what to feed off. And the cool thing is, generally speaking, most people in small business, you mentioned earlier, cash flow is an issue. Yeah, it is an issue if you don't know what you're doing.
Yes.
And there's a handful of things that if you do, it's actually a lot simpler than what most people think. Yep. There are only 5 levers. There's only 5 things you can do to generate more cash. Yep. There's only 5 things. When you know those 5 levers, all you got to do is start pulling those right levers at the right time.
Right.
That's part of what we do to help people out is on that with the optics is knowing how to do that. That applies equally with your investment.
Absolutely.
It's the same
principles.
It's exactly the same principle.
Dead right.
So looking at the optics, looking at the numbers, even if you're not a numbers person, is find someone that is, and that's probably the big thing for me, is I found someone that could do that, and they would help work with that, and we just sit down and put it in the diary. If it doesn't go in the diary, it's not going to happen.
Yes.
And that's probably the key thing. Actually, this is probably a tip if I had to give you around.
Yes,
you asked me around. Okay, right at the very beginning, why I become, why got all these success things. I kind of go, I just kind of lucked it a little bit. I feel like this is how it happened. I just did this, and that's what happened. However, if I think about it now, there is one thing that is super duper important, and I was lucky that I did this. I discovered this, and then I applied it to business. Is one, I did a lot of sports. I love the sport for the modern pentathlon, and went to the World Championships quite a few years ago on that. I had 5 coaches, which got me into coaching. But what happened with 5 different sports, and I had a full-time job, is I had to be very regimented in the way my week was structured to fit in all the lessons and all the different 5 sports. You have to be doing 2 or 3 sessions on each of them a week. So I had to structure that well, and so I got into looking at my week and planning my week, setting up a plan, an ideal week using your language, and then tweaking it as the weeks unfolded. Then I became a dentist, and you have to run I got taught by my beautiful practice managers in the Navy, and they're awesome skilled people that showed me, right, well, if you structure your day where you do checkups, 3 checkups, then we had drill and fill, and then you made the money in the crowns and bridges, you did that at this certain time. And so there was a flow to make money during the day.
Brilliant.
And so structuring the week, particularly a week, so that I was making money. And to this day, that's one of our secrets is, right, I've got my money days, and I know how much money I'm going to make by what my diary looks like. So one of the keys was coming into it saying around looking at numbers and looking at optics is if it is not in the diary, it is not going to happen.
Yes.
And even if I don't know who I'm going to speak with, I don't know who that looks like, I chuck it in the diary and go, all right, by this day I need to have it. And it's like, holy shit, I better get that sorted because I've made a commitment to get it done. So running the diary, let the diary dictate that, because that'll dictate your actions, and then the actions will produce the results. So that's one thing that really very, very fine-tuned. Yes. And even the days of the week, I have a different flow and different energy, so I do different things on different days.
Yeah, okay.
And that's just got to happen, right? I have to give credit to my amazing practice managers, Penny and Shay, who basically, would clip me over the years and say, you just don't do stupid things. And I'm like, okay, all right, well, I'll do what you tell me.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, what you've just described is exactly how we operate, and we've got a simple philosophy: if it's not written down, it didn't happen, and it's not going to happen. So you should see our diaries, mate. It's chock-a-block, and we've got the ideal calendar sitting in behind it, so people know when to book in and when there is available time to do the right things in alignment with
success leaves clues.
Yeah, it's so true, mate. It's so true. It's just there's some absolute gold in what you're sharing there. Thanks, mate, and really enjoying the chat. I feel like I could talk all day, mate. We've only just scratched the surface, but mate, if and I'm mindful of your time because you are busy and you've been very generous with your time to date. If we sort of start to bring it to a close, you've talked about a lot of information that I know that a lot of our listeners are going to be very interested to follow through and get in touch with you to assist them in their journey. What would you like to share with them, and what's the best way for them to contact you, mate?
Well, I mean, the simple thing is you go onto, well, actually, you know what, you can just send an email to my assistant, PA, as in Papa Alpha, at daviddugan.com, so DAVIDDUGAN.com. And if they're a business owner, happy to have a 15-minute chat, brainstorm.
Right.
If they're serious about taking the business to the next level, then happy to do that. Yeah. Other than that, Dr. David Dugan on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter. Yeah. Great places to get some insights, and happy to help out that way.
Brilliant, mate. And the immediate future for you, what are you doing? What's getting you excited, and how can people participate in that?
So the immediate things for us, we've got an event in July, which is called Scale the Sale. Okay. Most people in scaling, this is very business focused. So most people don't actually know what scaling actually means. And the one thing that is you can do everything right, and if you don't do this one thing, it will never, ever, ever scale. And that is to scale the sale. So what we've got is we've actually got the world expert in this area coming in, and we're 2 world experts in 2 areas plus myself. Yep. And we're just mapping through how to create a scalable sales company. Brilliant. So that everyone is selling, but they're not feeling like they're selling because they're not selling, they're telling stories.
Yes.
And so we're unpacking how to do that. So that's one thing that we've got coming up that is pretty exciting. And then at the end of every year in November, we do a vision and planning session for everyone that they map out their 10-year, their 3-year, their 1 year, and that's everyone says it's the best event our flagship event anyway. So
put us on that list. We do it every year, but it's always much more fun when you do it with others because there's stuff that you pick up that you just wouldn't think about when you're gazing at your navel. So put me on that list, David. I'll be very keen to participate in that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, 100. And you got to do it before Christmas and before the crazy season. So we do it early in November.
Good idea. Brilliant idea. No, I would love to participate, mate. Really enjoyed the chat. There's some buckets of gold there that people need to get their pens and paper out to get it and listen to it a number of times, I think, to really take it away. You've been extremely generous, mate. Would love to have you back on to drill into some of those subjects over time. And I'm pretty keen to stay in touch on the journey because I've got a lot of admiration and respect for you personally and what clearly yourself and your partner are doing, mate. It's sensational work.
Thanks, buddy. Well, we're just we're leading learners. We're experts. We're just on this learning journey, and we're happy to share the love with people who want to go on that same journey. And if any of that, I don't know exactly how you use all the podcasts, but if there's a Q&A and you want to come back in sometime and do a Q&A of what people want to ask and whatever, and I'm like happy to, when the tide rises, all boats rise, and I think that's a good thing. If I can help support that in some way, that'd be awesome.
Mate, you've just given me a great idea to do a Q&A session, and you've just nominated yourself, so I'm going to take you up on that. Thanks, mate.
You'd be crashed.
Brilliant, mate. Thanks again. We'll be in touch, and look forward to catching up with you soon, David.
Thanks, buddy. Catch you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, mate. How good was that? I hope you enjoyed it. To get a summary of all the investment gold and to get a copy of the show notes, email me on hello@khgroup.com.au. That's hello@khgroup.com.au. Or check us out at www.khgroup.com.au/get invested. And join me next week for another episode of the Get Invested podcast. Thanks for listening, and as always, dream as if you'll live forever and live as if you'll die tomorrow.